Hello YouTubers. Today I'm going to talk to you about something that is not very popular in the software development industry. A lot of developers, let me draw a picture for you here, and I'm one of them. When you develop a software and you use a data type like integers, when your integers are involved in a calculation of some sort and you're getting your input from the outside world, your application might be exposed to a very dangerous error, which is the part where you exceed the limitation of the maximum value of an integer. So let's say you have an API or you have an application that tells users, add numbers and I'll do the calculation for you. But your users may pass in the already existing maximum value of an integer. What happens when that occurs? A lot of people would think, oh, then C# will throw an exception, and we will know something wrong happened. Actually, that's not what C# does. What C# does is that it continues to calculate, but it goes to the other negative side of the integer. From the maximum integer value, it'll start going to the maximum negative value of an integer. And I'm going to show you an example of that right now. Let's use C# Interactive here. It's a nice tool that helps you, write C# code real quick. Let's bring the maximum value of an integer. So let's run this real quick. Here's a maximum value, and let's say I am passing in this maximum integer value in an integer, and then I'm saying a total would be max value plus user input, which let's say 100. You'd think this will blow up, right? Your data type is not checking that. That's for one. Your IDE is not saying, oh, that you're exceeding the maximum value, because to your IDE, this looks like a legit operation. But is it really a legit calculation? Let's print out the total in here and see what that happens. Total. So if I run now, what happens? You get this negative value. You get exactly a negative value where you're going to the other side of the negative side of a maximum integer value. So how do we fix this? The first thing that comes to mind is that you going ahead and saying, well, why don't I just put an if statement like this and say if the input is larger than this value, then go ahead and calculate. But that's really lame. You don't want to do that. There's a better way to do that. A better way to make sure that your code is going to throw an exception. Some people will say ternary, Go ahead and say if this is the user input, let's put that in a variable so we can play around with it. Let's put it in a local constant, I guess, and let's say this is user input. Right? We don't really want it a constant, but let's get rid of that. Okay? So some people would say, why don't we just say user input larger than int.max or maximum value if your total, sorry, forget about all that. If total larger than x.max, then throw an exception. Something like that, right? It's still a lot of work. Right? And it makes your code look weird. And if you do that every time you're doing an integral kind of arithmetic operation, it's going to look weird. And people are going to think, oh, you're overthinking this. And maybe I am overthinking this. How do you get out of this trap? There's this thing in C# called checked. And what checked is going to do is going to make sure that your final type, your total, actually fits in the data within that calculation that you're trying to do. So when you run your checked, what's going to happen is that it says, oh, you exceeded your maximum value, blow up, instead of continuing to run with the operation. So let's try to run this and see what happens. Arithmetic operation resulted in an overflow, right? You will see a lot of applications, and this is a big security problem actually. Anyone could break your API if your API takes in integers and runs any kind of operations. If you run any kind of arithmetic operations out there and you don't have that checked mark, you're in trouble. right? So make sure that when you're using integers, if you're doing operations, doubles, decimals, make sure you have this security in there. It's just one word, checked. There is also unchecked. Why don't you go ahead to check that out, check the documentation of unchecked. But this is the part that really matters the most, especially when you're building commercial applications. If you have any questions, comments, you have anything to add on that, please drop it in the comment section. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And thank you for watching.